Halloween is right around the corner. It's a kind of spooky and scary time of the year. But you know what's even scarier? When your wife starts yelling at you to get rid of these empty spools. And you telling her, I'm telling you, I'm gonna find a good use for them. I promise. Well, guess what? Today I found a great use for them because listen, if you're anything like me and you love 3D printing, you've gone through a lot, you don't want to throw them away because you feel bad. It's a lot of plastic. Well, check out this project. It could be a great storage unit for candy or nuts, bolts, jewelry, whatever. You can give them as gift boxes. There's just so many different uses for it. And I'm gonna take you today step by step through this process right after this.
Welcome to the show that sets your mind free. Tech and gadgets, 3D surprise. Captain Creativity. Honesty inside to have your with David's guiding light, invention spark and take their flight.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Captain Creativity. I am your host, David Merrill, and this is your co-host, R2D2. Anyway, before we jump into creating this awesome project, I wanted to let you guys know that we now have memberships on our channel. And so if you decide to join, you're going to get exclusive content, early access to content, access to our Discord server where we have unique settings and files, printer settings, and much more. And you might just want to join our channel because you love what we do and your support would be really, really welcome. You know, one of the things that I want to remind you is that we do a lot of charitable work with our channel, and we donate 3D printers and build maker spaces and develop STEM curriculum. So you joining and becoming a member really goes a long way. And so with that being said, let's get into this guy. First and foremost, I want to go ahead and I want to thank Michael Badley. He is a genius and a creator of amazing astromech files for the 3D printing community. He's been my inspiration on other projects that we've done, like Build-A-Droid, and you know, definitely check that one out if you haven't seen it, where we created an entire STEAM curriculum built around, here's a guy, here he is right here. We built a whole STEAM curriculum around this guy. First, let's talk about where to get the files, as well as the inspiration and the process of going from slicing to printing. I first got the inspiration and the files from Michael Badley. He's got some amazing files out there. And as you can see, he took really unique twists to a lot of these spool storage solutions that you today find on Thingiverse and Colts 3D. And so he was inspired by those designs and then made his own R2 modifications on top of those. Once you're in there, there was instructions to find out where you can get connectors and such. And when I actually came in and I opened up all the different STL files, I did in fact notice that there were no connectors. So I went to the notes file and then in turn to the website, and I found this 404 error, and I was like, oh man. So that brought me to searching online, and there are dozens and dozens of these spool holders, and that's because there are so many types of different spools out there that exist, and those slight differences change dramatically on how things are going to fit together, because you don't want it to wobble. You want to have everything stick together. In the end, I found a basic idea after kind of jumping around to all these individuals and watching videos. And by the way, Teaching Tech was very helpful in understanding part of the assembly process. But just like him, the modifications that he made, they were just not available for the spools that I had. And I've been using things like eSun, their hard plastic spools, as well as Sunlu 2.0. This is their new spools that came out. I'm going to also be making solutions for Prusa and Polymaker and many other popular ones as well. But in any case, going through this process, I found that there just wasn't really anything out there that would work out of the box for me. And so I said, all right, I think I'm going to have to start from scratch. And that's exactly what I ended up doing. And so I started making certain changes to these files to make them work and for the spools that I currently have. But there are some basic principles that stay the same. For example, you'll notice that on your drawers there is a hole, and that goes all the way from top to bottom. Those are usually M3 rods, and there are 4 of them. And those secure the drawers in, and that way they could swing open and shut. There's also a rod that goes down the center. I'm going to be using an M6 rod along with M6 nuts. And so the principle is essentially that the rod goes straight down, and then you cap it off over here, and then straight down over here, cap it off here and over here. And then the dome is supposed to go over it over here, and then through the dome, I actually made an M6 modification to the dome in the files that I started adapting. And so I actually did all of that in Tinkercad, and I'm going to be actually sharing all of these through our new membership that we just started on Captain Creativity. So as you can see over here, I put it in an M6 cutout over here, which will secure the dome to the different levels that you decide to use. You know, for example, here you could go with 3 levels, but you could also just go with 1 level if you want and a dome. It's up to you. So with that being said, we started making 3MF files that would be available through our Discord server for members. And you also could get files like this on Thingiverse and Colts 3D or Mr. Badley's Patreon. There's a multitude of ways for you to be able to get files for this project. But here, you know, the purpose was to show you how I got the files, and then more importantly, how do you assemble it and get it going. So anyway, all you got to do here, one of the great things about a lot of these spool draws that were developed is they don't require any supports, which is really cool. And then Mr. Badley's domes also don't require any supports, which is also fantastic. So now let's get ready to printing. The big ones obviously are the dome. That's going to take the longest. And so if you slice it, you'll see that it will take a total of 9 hours and 43 minutes. So that's quite a long time, but you know what? It's not bad. You just leave it overnight. And it will take a third of a spool basically to print that out. Then of course you could go ahead over here and print out the solid plastic pieces over there. And I like to do 3 at a time. And this is about 5 hours and 8 minutes. And this is only not even a fifth of a spool, which is great. Okay, now that you've 3D printed all your parts, let's go over everything you're going to need for this project. First, most importantly, you're going to need your spools. And since we're going to go ahead here and build a 3-layered draw system, we're going to need 3 spools. Of course, you can do this project with just 2 layers or 1 layer, and then you would need less parts. But for this video, we're going to do a 3-layered system. So everything you see here is what we're going to need to achieve this. The next thing we're going to do is let's talk about all the parts that no matter what type of spool you get, you need to print for a 3-layered system. You're going to need your dome. You're going to need a dome cover, which goes on just like that. You're going to need 3 detailed parts and 9 blank draws, okay? So 9 blank draws, 3 detailed. Now, you're also going to want to get these little rings here, and they kind of hide the M3 screws on the top and the bottom, and they make the whole system, you know, kind of sit flush. So you're definitely going to want to get these 2, but if you don't care about how, like, seeing those M3 nuts show up, then you may not even need this, so it could be optional. Now let's talk about the things that are going to be specific to every spool, because every spool is different. For every spool, there will be a guide for you to go over onto your spool like so, and then you're going to line it up however you like, and then basically mark it, and that will be where the rods for the draws are going to go. So that's what this guide is for. You're going to also have one of these other guides. It's a secondary guide that allows you to line up the top and the bottom, because even though you can mark the top part, then you have to have the bottom part be lined up with the top one. So that's the guide. So that's another unique piece to each different manufacturer. And then you're going to have your connector pieces. Because we're doing a 3-layered one, you're going to need 2 double connectors, like so. And these are going to be the ones that are going to go between 2 spools. All the way at the bottom, the very bottom of your Astromech spool draw system, you're going to put one of these on the bottom. So now that we're done with the unique connector pieces and guide, as well as the 3D printed parts, let's talk about the hardware. In the middle of the spool, you're going to have an M6 rod, and this is an M6 by 200 millimeter rod. And it's going to go right up the center and ending up basically inside there. And now you're going to also need 4 M3 by 200 millimeter rod, as you can see here, along with M3 nuts. So you're going to probably need about 8 M3 nuts. So now let's talk about the tools. What tools are you going to need? You're going to need a mallet, whether it's something like this or something a little bit lighter like this. That is fine. Please don't use a hammer. You're going to break your parts, okay? And then you're going to also maybe get bolt cutters. And again, this is all about the aesthetics. So that is everything that you're going to need now to get started on this project. So let's begin. All right, so let's start working on drilling the holes, top and bottom on our spools. So we're going to set the guide. And on this type of spool, I don't want, like if I'm putting in a drill like this, I don't want the holes to really kind of end up over here. Because then, you know, it's not great. So I'm actually kind of trying to avoid where these holes are. It's not the end of the world if they are, but I am trying to avoid that. It'll just make it a lot easier that I know that I'm drilling through solid plastic. And you can see I had already marked it. So once you do, you just mark it here, mark it here. I took an acrylic marker. Sometimes people have it in pencil. It doesn't always come out so clearly. But you can just mark it in any way that you can. And once you've marked all the sides, you'll be able to use this tool over here. And essentially, you're going to take your tool, like so, and you're going to line it up just like that. And what it's going to do is you're going to be able to see over here, you're going to be able to see exactly where the yellow is. And then you're going to just flip it over and you're going to be able to mark the other side. Actually, you're going to probably do the thicker one on the top and then the thinner one will be on the bottom so that your pencil can get through. And you're going to just mark it. And then that way now, your hole is going to be aligned top to bottom. And at that point, I have been using a 1/8 inch bit over here. And I actually kind of do it like this. I hold it this way. If you have a drill press, that's obviously going to be the best solution. But, you know, watch your hands. And basically just line it up. And there you go. And so then you just go ahead, repeat that whole process till you're all done. And just to give you an idea that it works and it works nicely. It fits perfectly, just like that. So we're just going to go now and knock out all the other holes. So one other tip I wanted to mention is that if you've already marked the top and you now lined up your bottom hole, you don't need to do this lining up for each and every one. You really just need to do it one time. Because once you do that and you've marked your top, you can now line that guide up again. And then just basically, all right, so now at this point, what we can actually start doing is we could start loading in our M3 by 200 millimeter rods, and we can start working those into our spool and start building upwards. So I would like to, since I'm starting at the bottom, I would like to put this detailed piece on the bottom. And so I'm gonna, put it in something like that, okay? And now I'm gonna take the M3 rod, and I actually like to put the M3 nut right at the bottom already and get it prepared so that it just will stop when I put it in. And so that's how I'm gonna go about doing it. So let's start from the bottom and go upwards. So here we go. So that's one, okay? And now we're gonna do the second one, which is another blank one. So let's do the blanks. Okay, got another rod. And we're gonna just keep working our way up. Okay, that's two. Here's the third one. Get your rod in there. And I know you would say, all right, let's line them all up and then do it in one shot. Well, that's never going to work. I mean, maybe, but very unlikely. Most likely, you're going to have to wiggle things around because you might be off even by a smidgen, like a fraction of a millimeter. So keep that in mind, that it's just really unrealistic to just put down the rods in one shot and not think that you're going to have to wiggle it. So I'm finding it just a little easier to start from the bottom and work our way up. Okay, and then this way, if we run into any problems, we can handle it one piece at a time, all right? So there we go. We've now done the bottom piece, and the pieces are all in. Now we're gonna move on to the second layer. Second layer, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna take one of the double connectors here, and we're going to kind of press it in, and you're not trying to even it out. You just wanna give it a little tap so it's in there, because the next spool that we put in, we kind of want the two to kind of bite together so that some of that piece is gonna, kind of have that tight connection with the next spool. So we'll go ahead and lower that down. And actually, as we're doing that, before we lower it down, let me actually do it on a side view, what I'm doing. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start lining up these pieces, right? And then what you wanna do is kind of get your middle detail over here ready to go. Okay, so you can see I'm kind of lining it up this way, but it is easier for me to do this while it's facing upwards for me. But whether you do it sideways or, facing you, it's really your choice. All right, so let's go ahead and put that one in. Okay, all right. Let's get the next one in. Okay, so push that in, get everything in, and now rest it back on the table. And then this is where you might want to give it a little hammer across, because you really want those spools to be nice and flush. And if you don't find that to be the case, then keep going at it. We are now done with the second or middle layer. All right, now on to the third layer. So we're gonna, once again, take a double connector, put it in on the top. Again, don't hit it in too much. And we're now ready to begin putting in our pieces. So I am just gonna, again, line everything up here. Okay. And on the top piece, I am gonna go with the utility arms, as you can see right over there. So I might, wanna load that first one up, get it ready. And again, sometimes you might find it easier to do it this way, facing you. But because I want you to see what I'm doing, I'm going to face it the inconvenient way so that you can see it. That's okay. I want you guys to learn how to do this. And if I have to suffer so that you can see how to do it, well, then that's okay with me. All right, so, that's so annoying when that happens. All right, so what you're gonna wanna do is just put that back up, and this is where it gets a little tricky because you kinda wanna let that hang there, and now you gotta put in that final set. And so it's possible to just kind of do that one after the other and then just kind of keep rolling it around. But you might be able to actually, because it's the top piece already, you might be able to just pre-align everything and then just try to stick everything on in one shot. But again, a lot harder to do that. In theory, it sounds reasonable, but in practice, I just don't think that's gonna fly. Okay, but we're almost there anyway, so doesn't matter. Okay, there we go. All right, so now that they're all on, that's on, that's on. That one kind of fell off, but we'll get it back on again. Okay, that's it. So now that they're all on, we're gonna push it through. Make sure all your screws on the bottom are pushed through. Push them all in. Make sure they're all in. Okay, now, here we go. Set it up. And now just make sure you guide in those holes. You're gonna need those screws to come through to the top. So, see, there we go. That's one screw on the top. We need that there. And we need that on each one of these. So make sure, there's the second one. Okay? Let's get the third one. Come on. There we go, 3. And where's 4? Come on, 4. 4, come on. Dude, all right, there it is, fine. Okay, so now we're gonna hammer it in. In the middle is best. Again, you just wanna make sure everything is nice and pushed in, right? We're trying to get all those pieces to lock together. And then once you feel, you'll look around, and once you see that something looks like it's really locked together at that point, what you want to do is take your M3, oh no, there it is. Okay, take your M3 nut, and now let's start going in and locking it into place. So it's not gonna pop back out after that, okay? And so we're gonna start doing that as we go around. Every place that looks like it's really been pinched in all the way is where we wanna be. Now just a note, I did in fact cut the rods, and I'm gonna recommend that when you do cut these rods, please cut them into a box and put on safety goggles, okay? Because when you cut those, they're gonna go flying, and I don't want anyone to get hurt or a glass to shatter across the room. Trust me, these things will go flying once you cut them. So just a little safe precaution there. All right, and I'm doing it by hand. Obviously better to do it with a wrench. Just wrench it in at this point and just make sure it's nice and even. If you have one that's a little bit flushed up, I'm gonna show you what to do with that in just a moment. But look at that. Look at that. We're all done there. That looks pretty great. Yeah, look. Beautiful. All right, so now the only thing we have left to do is we got to pop in that last connector. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to push that in. And the same deal, we're going to go ahead, knock it in all the way. Okay, just like that. Just like that. Look at that. Beautiful. And at this point, we are going to now prepare putting in the M6 200 millimeter bolt. I actually put a lock nut on the bottom of it, and that might be the best way to go because it really just holds it. So we're going to take that now, and we're going to send it down through the body and push it right into that hole, just like that. And if you notice now, there you go. It's on the other side. So at this point, I wanted to share with you something that some people are going to be okay with and some people are not going to be okay with. At this point, you would normally go ahead and take the dome and put it on, but I don't like seeing these pieces here. I just don't like them. They're kind of, they're just not, I don't want to see them. So I kind of created these two rings that can go over it here as well as on the bottom, and you can actually glue those on. There's a multitude of different things you can do there, but the easiest one is probably just to glue them on, and they can actually end up, now the top you don't have to glue on because the dome is going to press down on it and that's going to hold it into place. So let me show you that. So I'm actually going to cut this a little bit shorter, and maybe even this a little bit shorter. I have these small cutters here, and I'm just going to go ahead and again put on your safety glasses. And the best thing to do is just kind of put a box, you know, maybe even angle it so that when it shoots off, it goes right into that box. Yeah, okay. There you go. All right. So this is what I was talking about. There's this little piece here, and you can actually press that down on top of the nuts, and that's going to hide. It doesn't like totally hide it, but it does a pretty good job of hiding it. So you just don't see so much of the screw. So you do see a little bit of the silver part here, but that's about it. And so I made this just to kind of give it a little bit more of a better cosmetic looking appearance. Now, the next thing you're gonna do, you're gonna take your M6 nut and you're gonna put it right on the bottom of the dome. And it might be a tight fit, so you might just wanna try to line it up and you just press it in and it's gonna snap in. And then once that's done, you can actually just start tightening it by spinning your dome around, just like this. And it will start, the teeth will start eating it up. Now, if your thing is falling down from the bottom, one suggestion is to kind of turn it over, and you can push over here, push in a little bit, and then push the dome back on. And again, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. And as you keep spinning the dome, now it's going to start biting that rod. There we go. And then you keep spinning, 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 spinning until you get it to a tight, but not over tight, don't over tighten it, just until you feel like it's going to hold everything together and it's not going to come undone. Because it is kind of nice to turn it around if you wanted to. And there you go. Beautiful, right? Isn't that neat? And now we're going to put on our lid. And like I said, if on the bottom you want to, you can also go ahead and put this piece on the bottom. And then what I would recommend here is to go ahead and just snap it on, and you can go ahead and glue that. Certainly, I'll make a version in the future where you could actually spin this around and I'll make a thing that you can maybe screw it through, and so then the nut starts in the middle. There are some improvements while doing this project that I'm telling you, it was like Pandora's box. Every time I started something, I started saying, I think there's a better way we could do this. And I just kept going and going and going. So anyway, like I said, you could just kind of, for the time being, my rings, you're just gonna put them on, and you're gonna probably just like put some glue on the bottom, and that will give you a base. Or you could just do nothing and let the nuts be the stands. So your choice. All right, now that that's done, let's go ahead and paint it. All right, so now it's time to begin painting this thing. And so I'm just using acrylic markers. I have liquid chrome. This is a great one to give like a real high gloss effect. And then I like to use these Maggie acrylic paint markers. I think they're also really good. Just do yourself a favor and please make sure that the cap is on when you are shaking. Otherwise, you're gonna get paint everywhere. I tell this to my students all the time. Please be considerate and do not paint the entire room. When you use these, I usually recommend taking some paper and you're gonna dab them in, and you can actually see if the color looks like it's gonna work for you or not, So you might wanna just test it out, maybe get some piece of plastic and see how it's gonna look on a piece of plastic. Here, for example, I have one. So, you kinda have to be happy with that color blue if that's what you're gonna go with. And if not, then just keep looking for a different color. And they do definitely have a nice assortment of different colors out there. So I'm gonna put links to all of this in the description, of course, so that you can see the pens that I love to work with. We have some other blues like this. This is another one that I actually have also found really good to work with. This company is called Estigon or something, Estigon, I don't know. But again, I love the dual-sided. This one actually has more of a brush, which is a lot easier, especially for kids to work with, because it's less shaking, and you could just like start right away and just start brushing. You also have a nice fine tip on it, and that's one of the things why I like all of these markers, is because you could get a fine tip as well as a thick tip, depending on what you're going to be working on and how much accuracy you're going to need. I'm done. Yay! Yay. All right. Woohoo! Let's get into the economics, how long this took, etc. Well, essentially, this ran me about $18 to print. It was about 1.2 rolls of filament. So if you price it out by the kilogram and the fact that I usually get most of my filament around $15, it came out to about $18. Now, of course, you might find cheaper filament and it'll come down to less. You also don't have to print all 3 layers. You could print only the top 2 layers if you want. Maybe bring down the project to $10. If you have only one printer, it's going to take you about 1 day and 9 hours. But if you have multiple printers, you're going to be able to knock it out in under a day, which is fantastic. Now, some of you are probably wondering, why didn't I use an AMS? Why did I color it with acrylic markers? And the answer to that is I didn't want the waste, and I didn't want to increase the amount of time. And that when you use multicolor printing, there's a huge increase of time and a huge amount of waste. I mean, it might have even been double the cost to do multicolor printing. However, with that being said, I do want to tell you that, I got hands-on access to the Prusa XL with the 5 extruders, and I have to tell you, if there was a printer that I would do this with multicolor printing, it would be that printer. The fact that each extruder has its own filament of a different color in it. Really cuts down on all that waste, and you don't have the increase of speed issue. I mean, maybe a little bit, but it really, really takes away a lot of the downsides to multicolor printing. It is expensive, but wow, is it impressive. Okay, enough about that though. Overall, great project. Another thing I goofed on, and I did want to bring it to your attention, you probably were like, dude, why did you print the dome in white? Why didn't you just print it in silk silver PLA? Well, let me tell you the answer to that. I was tired. I was very, very tired, and my brain wasn't functioning anymore, okay? That's the reason. I made a mistake, and I didn't want to wait any longer. I've been working so hard on making this video. I just wanted to release it. So I didn't care about painting it. But you are right. You should print the dome in silk PLA plus so that you and silver color. And then all you have to do is color in the blue. That would have been a huge time saver. But AMS would have been, or Ace Pro multicolor printing would have been even worse, except for the Prusa XL, as I mentioned. Anyway, I want to thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoy doing this project as much as I did. You will actually. You're going to enjoy it a lot more because I suffered, and so that you don't have to suffer. And so thank you so much, and don't forget to like and subscribe.